Before we get started, please go over to Amazon.com and grab a copy of my book, Education and Justice. If you have an African-American son in public school, you need this book because I teach you the many ways that public schools mistreat African-American boys and what you can do to help your son. So go over there and get your copy immediately. Did Trump end Black History Month? Did he terminate the celebration of Black History Month? Technically, he did not. But he disrespected it blatantly. Let me explain. So he issued an executive order that allowed basically federal agencies to say, we're not going to participate in the celebration of Black History Month. And that is precisely what the Department of Defense decided to do. Now, he very, very blatantly disrespected Black History Month with the proclamation that he released concerning Black History Month. All right, let's take a look at just one paragraph of that proclamation, and you'll see what I'm saying. All right, here it is. So there are a few things I want to point out about this proclamation. So let's read. Throughout history, Black. Do you notice that Black is with a small b, is spelled with a small b? Well, that should not be the case. It should be a big B, capital B, because it's referring to humans, to people, Black Americans, not small b describing some object or article or like this computer piece that I'm looking at. Then that would have been fine. But he's referencing Black people, so it should be capital B. I don't believe that's a mistake either, because I'm sure that people look at this and check this and so forth before they're released. So I think they intended for it to be small b. Let's keep reading. Throughout history, Black Americans have been among our country's most consequential leaders. That is true. But let's come back now. Let's keep reading and see how he comes back and disrespects our contribution. He said, shaping the cultural and political destiny of our nation. Cultural refers to the arts, entertainment, football, basketball, athletics, right? The cultural things, singing and all of that. And then political. That is basically referring to our push for equality, which he goes on to say. And what's wrong with that? Well, because we have made many, many more contributions to this country than just cultural, entertainment, athletics, comedy, politics. We have made many, many more contributions to this country. For example, I made a short list. All right, he could have mentioned the contributions that we made to science and medicine. For example, Dr. Charles Drew revolutionized blood banking and plasma storage, saving millions of lives. He could have mentioned Dr. Daniel Hale Williams, performed one of the first successful open heart surgeries. He could have mentioned Dr. Patricia Bath and invented laser cataract surgery. He could have mentioned Katherine Johnson of the movie Hidden Figures, who was a NASA mathematician whose calculations were crucial to space missions. He could have even mentioned his former HUD secretary, Dr. Ben Carson, who led the first successful separation of twins joined at the head. Or he could have mentioned Lewis Latimer, who improved the light bulb with a longer-lasting filament. He could have mentioned Reginald Lewis for his contribution in business and in economics. He could have mentioned Thurgood Marshall, who was the first African-American Supreme Court justice. He could have mentioned Colin Powell, first Black Secretary of State and chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He could have mentioned Mae Jemison, the first Black woman in space. Our accomplishments and achievements in this country are not limited to entertainment and politics. And then he goes on to say, the insult continues. American heroes such as Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Thomas Sowell, Justice Clarence Thomas, and countless others represent what is best in America and her citizens. To lump Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman with Thomas Sowell and Justice Clarence Thomas is disrespectful. Frederick Douglass fought to end slavery. Harriet Tubman risked her life to save people from slavery, to rescue people from slavery. Clarence Thomas has been an enemy to civil rights, right? Thomas Sowell has used his scholarship to undermine the African American community, both of them pandering to white supremacy. So to name all those together like that, he was making a political statement. No question. And then he goes on to say, their achievements which have monumentally advanced the traditions of equality. We've done much more than advance the tradition of equality, as I just pointed out. And this is a small list. And go on down to the next highlighted sentence. We will also never forget the achievements of American greats like Tiger Woods, who have pushed the boundaries of excellence in their respective fields, proving or paving the way for others to follow. While I certainly celebrate Tiger Woods' golf ability and skills, one of the best, if not the best. But we also know Tiger has been very much out of the limelight when it comes to advancing equality and justice. In fact, Tiger also sort of stays away and doesn't really prominently push his Black identity, right? I mean, those are just facts. And also, why didn't he mention Dr. King? There has been no more consequential African-American civil rights leader or leader, period, than Dr. Martin Luther King, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. I know why Trump left him off, because they are attacking civil rights laws that help to dismantle Jim Crow. So it doesn't surprise me that he left out Dr. King. And I believe some of these files that are going to be released on Dr. King, I think, are going to also be used to try to discredit him and discredit the civil rights movement and other leaders. So this proclamation does not celebrate Black History Month. This proclamation disrespects Black History Month. And it shows us why Black History Month is still very relevant. And that's what I want to talk about next. Hello, everyone. I got great news. The merch is finally here. We've been waiting and waiting, but we can finally begin branding our channel. But we need your help to get our brand out there. If you like what we provide and like what you see, please go to the channel and grab your hoodie, your t-shirt, your mug, and we got more designs and products on the way. Just visit our YouTube channel at the Defiant Lawyers Network. Also, we will donate a portion of each dollar you spend on our merch towards some nonprofit. And remember, as always, stay woke. All right, so with that in mind, let's now talk about, is Black History Month still important? And the answer is absolutely. It is more essential and important now than ever. Why? Because of the Trump administration. Because of Black conservatives and some pro-Black imposters who attack civil rights, who diminish the Black history accomplishments that we celebrate. So it is more important now than it ever has been, certainly in my lifetime, that we continue to celebrate Black History Month. Now, it's also important because it's Black history, not just a month. In fact, it's the shortest month of the year, but it's Black history. Black history is extremely important. There is no other group in this country like us African Americans. Why? Because we were enslaved in this country for 240 years, which means we laid the foundation, the economic foundation for this country. No question. the wealth of a whole lot of whites came from the enslavement of African American people. And no one else, no other group of people in this country shouldered that awful burden of being chattel property and enriching other people. So Black history is extremely important, and we must insist that it's celebrated. And here's why. It's a reminder of how far God has brought us. Again, from chattel slavery to now we have a spending power of $1.8 trillion. And we are involved in every facet of the American life, the American story. We still have a long ways to go, folks. I just think about the fact that African Americans own less than 3% of this nation's wealth, 3 or 4%, less than 5%. Let's say 5. But that's a drop in the bucket when we're 14% of this nation's population and has been here for the last 400 years since the founding of this country. Right? Again, doing the hard, dirty work, being enslaved, and then even in Jim Crow, through sharecropping and all the rest, we laid the economic foundation for this country. Every wealthy white person, white corporation should all say thank you to the African American and should support reparations. So it is a reminder of how far God has brought us. All right? It's a testament to our own resilience, our survival, and our progress, despite all the white supremacy. All right? It counters white supremacy narratives. Because when you look at the accomplishments of African Americans by looking at Black history, then you see the lies that have been told about us being inferior, not having the same level of intelligence, etc. Black history counters that narrative, right? It proves that African Americans are not inferior. It proves, in fact, that we're brilliant. And we have been integral in human progress, and not just in America, around the world. Around the world. I think about Dr. Carver, who took a peanut and discovered over 300 different products that we use today from a peanut. George Washington Carver. So I salute Dr. Carver today. So no, we're not inferior. And Black History Month counters that white supremacy narrative. It celebrates Black excellence and innovation. Again, Dr. Carver. But there's so many others. So many others. So we celebrate Black excellence and innovation by highlighting our contributions to science, to politics, arts, and culture. We have made America a better country, which is why I can not tolerate this Make America Great Again. It has been the hard work, the dedication, the commitment, the brilliance, the excellence, the genius of African American people who in fact made America great in the first place. And I use the word great very loosely because this country has many issues. But I can tell you this also, going back, we lose a lot of that greatness. Because what's behind us? Jim Crow and slavery. It was African Americans who pushed the country beyond those evils. All right, namely Dr. King, which is why it stands out that Trump did not include him in his proclamation, but I just explained why. Okay? It inspires the next generation, the younger Blacks, the kids, the kids. Now, some of these young black men especially have been so contaminated with disinformation that they don't appreciate black history as much as they should, and some of the black young females as well. It's the reason why we must continue to push Black History Month, and not just for 1 month, the shortest month of the year, throughout the year, right? So it inspires the next generation by giving our young people knowledge of our contribution, pride in blackness, confidence in their abilities, and a sense of purpose, and how important that is when only a couple of weeks ago, a young black man committed an awful act of terror and then committed suicide, reportedly because he hated himself as an African American, listening to a whole lot of this black conservatism. So Black History Month helps black youth especially feel good about themselves and see the tremendous contributions that we have in fact made, that gives them, that equips them with the ability to refute and not to allow white supremacy to harm their soul, their self-esteem, their self-respect. Okay? We see this young man here in this photo with his brain just popping and asking questions and so forth as he reads. And again, a lot of that inspiration comes from Black history. It educates white people, and man, do they need an education. They need to know and be constantly reminded that, again, America is what it is today. Whatever greatness America has a lot to do with the contributions of African American people. So it educates white people by forcing them to confront its racist history. They want to wipe it out. They don't want it taught in school. They don't want to look at it. They are ashamed of it. All the more reason why in this landscape, in this political landscape, African American history, Black history is so very important. It reduces the chance of history repeating itself. How important that is. Because we all know the saying, if you don't know your history, you're bound to repeat it. We can never, ever allow this country to forget its ugly, racist, demonic, evil, satanic past of oppressing people for the sole reason of greed, and then justifying it with racism. We can never, ever allow them to do that again. Now, how are both MAGA and white conservatives, with the help of black conservatives and pro-black imposters, how are they attacking Black history? All right, let's look at that. Well, by dismantling federal support for Black history, by eliminating the Department of Education and leaving history curriculums to state control. Things typically don't work out as well for African Americans when southern states especially, but many other states now, are in control. There need to be federal oversight, which is why it is very troubling that Trump, MAGA, the GOP are all trying to dismantle the Department of Education and leave educating our students, our kids, to states. The federal oversight is very important. And so they're trying to dismantle the Department of Education. I know when I was a teacher and when I was writing my book, Education and Justice, if it wasn't for the data that the Department of Education kept, I could not have written a fact-based, evidence-based book. All of that will be gone. And so much more by them getting rid of the Department of Education. But let me say this. As you see, we do have the ability to push back, to fight back. And some of that has to do with states and other ways that we do that is through the court system. The problem that concerns me with the court system are the number of far-right judges, but especially the far-right leaning of the United States Supreme Court. Nevertheless, we got to keep fighting and keep fighting and keep fighting, right? All right? By defunding schools that teach Black history. Trump said that himself. I've watched a video of him talking with Fox News host where he said back on the campaign trail some months ago that he would dismantle the Department of Education. And one of those hosts asked him, what would he do if they started teaching, that the country started in slavery and killed and genocide Native Americans? He said that he would defund those schools. And so that makes you think, how can he really be serious about celebrating Black History Month? And here he is wanting to defund schools that teach Black history. That's why, again, I don't take this seriously, this proclamation. This is a joke to me. Okay? All right? How else? Defunding Black history in the Department of Defense. Man, the Department of Defense is the largest agency in the country. And it has just millions of African-American people in it. And both they and the white and the Hispanic and the Asian and all Americans need to be learning, celebrating Black history. So defunding Black history in the Department of Defense is really, really, really serious. And I believe if we don't cry out about it, I believe Trump will, maybe next year, the year after that, will basically say we are suspending the celebration of Black History Month. I don't know that that's going to happen. I don't know that he's going to do that. But I know sometimes he will say things and do things just to see what the response is going to be. And we need to respond very strongly that the country is better when the country celebrates the contributions of the people who, again, laid the foundation for this country. So here's Trump and Hegseth, and he's the one who announced that the DOD would not be celebrating or putting money towards celebrating Black History Month. And again, don't be deceived or fooled or tricked or bamboozled. He did so because of an executive order Trump wrote. By removing diversity and history programs from the military. Of course, they did that with the Tuskegee Airmen, until such an outcry was made, and I think Hegseth, from what I read, from what I understand, he restored it. Diminishing Black history by labeling it as identity politics. We're not talking about identity politics when we talk about Black history. We're again talking about the folks for 240 years enriched the majority population for which we have not been compensated. So don't put us in a category with a whole bunch of other people, other groups who have not made the contribution to this country that we've made. And conservatives do that. They dismiss Black history and call it divisive, right? It's just dividing America. Hogwash, malarkey, dung, whatever you want to call it. Black history doesn't divide America. America's already divided. The fact that we have to even have Black history shows how divided the country is. For 240 years, the country was divided Many of the states were divided, enslaved. So how is Black history, how is remembering that further division? That's crazy. African American history is a part of American history. These people here, these people, they should be remembered. They should be celebrated. And more importantly, their descendants should be compensated. Because no ethnicity has done more for this country than African Americans. State level bans on teaching true Black history is another way they're attacking Black history, right? All we got to think about is Ron DeSantis prohibiting lessons on slavery, Reconstruction, and systemic racism, or watering it down and saying it the way they want it said, not the way that it really happened and continues to happen, by banning and targeting Black authors and historical narratives. This is how they're going about attacking Black history, and especially this guy here, Ron DeSantis. And we shoulder some blame too. African Americans' failure to prioritize Black history. We must make it priority, just like the Jewish community. The Jewish community is not going to allow anyone to forget the Holocaust, and it shouldn't be forgotten. It shouldn't be forgotten. But they know it's their responsibility to make sure it's not forgotten, and we have that same responsibility. And it goes beyond building that tremendous African American museum in D.C. That's a beautiful thing. That's a powerful, powerful. If you've never been there, go there, spend a day. I think there are 8 stories in that massive building with all that African American history. And just plan to spend the first part of the day and on the bottom levels. There are 4 levels, I believe, on the bottom, and then the second, get you some lunch, and then spend the second half on the top levels. But make sure you go. And there are other places across the country as well. But it goes beyond that, and I'm going to show you how in just a moment, how it goes beyond those museums, okay? All right, now, very quickly, what can we do to promote Black history? Well, we need to pressure Congress to protect Black history. Call your congressperson. Call your representative. Call your senators. Call them. They need to hear from you. Also, pressure state legislators to defend Black history. Call them. Let them know that you're looking and watching, you're listening, you're engaged. All right? What else? By embedding Black history in community organizations, right? Like churches, Greek-lettered organizations, local libraries, on and on and on. Black History Month should be a part of our community. And of course, and dare I say most importantly, by promoting Black history at home with your children. Celebrate it. Have Black history books around the house. Have African American art in the house. Have African American photographs, paintings of accomplished African American people. So we have to do every bit of that. We have to teach our kids to celebrate African American history. And we also need to study African history beyond slavery, because our history did not begin in slavery. We were enslaved for about 240, 50 years. And again, I'll continue to say we should be compensated for that. But that's not our origin. Our origin is not enslavement. We descended from a very powerful, very brilliant group of people. Now, I know you have been told, we've all been told, that Africans are backwards and so on. I've been to the continent. It's not true. There are some parts, just like there are some parts here in America, which are poor, etc. But there's a very common sense reason why they have suffered so much poverty. Because, again, of white supremacy. Okay? White supremacy. So we need to know our history beyond slavery. And most of us came from this area in Africa. Most African American people descended from this area. Get to know it. Do your DNA. I did mine some years ago, and it has just been powerful. I learned that my ancestors are a part of the Yoruba tribe, or the Yoruba people. In fact, I guess I'm announcing it for the first time here, my wife and I plan to change our names because I am not going to die with the slave master's name. That doesn't make sense to me. That's repugnant to me. Why am I going to carry the name of the people who enslaved my people? Why am I going to carry that to the grave? I'm not. So we're going to be changing our name. And I know that there are issues between Africans and African Americans, and sometimes we don't have the unity we need to have, but even that sometimes can be overplayed. Let me tell you this. When I went to Africa and preached over there, actually, I sponsored a young man to come back to America. Okay, I helped him come back. At that time, I was pastoring a church in North Carolina, and we brought him back from Africa. We helped him with his paperwork. We were his sponsors. He couldn't have come here without a sponsor. And 5 years later, that young man is doing wonderful. He has married. He has several children now. He is doing wonderful. So we need to know our history beyond slavery. All right. Thank you for watching this video. I am Reverend and Civil Rights Attorney Augustus Corbett. Again, we're going to continue to bring you these stories from a Black perspective. All right? And always remember, no matter what, stay woke.